So when the US government made the decision to close down its development programme, it issued an order called the Stop Work Order, and that meant that everything just had to stop on that day, literally. So a whole bunch of contraceptives were stranded in a warehouse in Belgium, and there was no way to move them on because the programme that would move them on had been terminated. So various offers were made by my own organisation, MSI Reproductive Choices, because we provide contraception services all over the world, including Australia. We offered to take them off their hands at no additional charge to the cost to the US taxpayer. And we said we would cover all the distribution costs. And the offer was declined. I also know that they declined offers from the Belgian government, from UNFPA and other NGOs as well.
Now, Sarah, paint us a picture here. What does it look like in terms of the exact medications being incinerated?
So the medications that are due for incineration are contraceptive implants, IUDs, emergency contraception, and contraceptive injectables. I know that there's quite a lot of disinformation flying around at the moment, that there's actually abortifacient products in the consignment as well. That's just another piece of disinformation coming out of the US government. They try to claim that IUDs and emergency contraception are methods of abortion. They're not. This is just another attempt to stigmatise women who use contraception and to limit reproductive freedoms for some of the most vulnerable women in the world.
Now, we'll get to the impacts on women shortly, but we know that that these contraceptions are being housed in warehouse in Belgium, as you mentioned, and they're due to be incinerated at the end of July. Now, do we know what their current status is?
So that's a little bit unclear at the moment, but it's what we are getting a sense of. We're getting a sense of partly thanks to some of the media spotlight that's been put on this issue, that the Belgian and French governments are working really hard behind the scenes and are in conversation with the US government to try and get some kind of resolution on this. So it's really unclear as to whether or not the product has actually left Belgium or not. But, the fact that conversations are still happening and communication channels are still open, that makes us a little bit more optimistic than we were, that maybe that there is an opportunity to save these products.
Now, Sarah, where were these products set to be delivered to, and what kind of impact would they have had on women, which is largely from low-income countries?
So the US government's family planning programme provided support primarily for countries in sub-Saharan Africa, but also in Asia, particularly Bangladesh, Nepal, Afghanistan. These particular products were destined for countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And the impact of not having them, my organisation, we provide contraception services, and I talk to our teams on a daily basis, and they're telling me that they're running out of methods, that they're sometimes having to turn women away, which is, that's going to have for women in sub-Saharan Africa, access to contraception is a real lifeline. If an adolescent or a young woman has decided for the first time that they're going to use contraception, for them to be turned away from a service because the method isn't there, there's a high chance that they're not going to come back. And if they don't come back, that means they may experience unintended pregnancy, they may have to drop out of school, which will change the trajectory of an adolescent girl's life forever. Or that there's a higher chance that they will die in childbirth or have to seek unsafe abortion. Because in many of these countries, abortion is legally and socially restricted anyways, making the ability to control your own reproductive autonomy even more critical. And, the impacts it's not just about protecting health. The impact of reproductive freedom is felt far beyond that. If women can't access contraception, they're losing an opportunity to break into generational cycles of poverty, to become economically independent, and play a much greater role in their societies. So that we see this as an ideological attack. This is, an attack on the reproductive freedom of some of the most vulnerable women in the world.
Now, Sarah, you said your organisation, MSI, tried, as hard as they could to try and, purchase these products, and that was blocked. And the US government says that they can't donate them to a third party as it breaks the global gag order of funding NGOs that provide abortion services. How true is this?
Yeah, that doesn't really hold water. They could have donated them to the Belgian government or UNFPA, because the Belgian government or UNFPA, which is a UN agency, are not covered by the global gag rule. And once they donated them to those two agencies, ownership of the commodities would have transferred either to UNFPA or the Belgian government, and then they could have done they could have then put them into the global supply chain and got them into the countries in the hands of women that need them. So it's, this is why we see it as an ideological attack, because that claim just doesn't hold water.
Now, there's also controversy about how to describe the contraceptives as causing abortion or preventing pregnancy in the first place. Now, is this linked to ongoing attempts to put controls on domestic US access to contraceptives and abortion, or is this a political decision?
I think it's a political decision. I mean, there's always been individuals who don't believe in reproductive choice, don't believe in reproductive rights, have always claimed incorrectly that emergency contraception and IUDs are abortificants. According to WHO, the World Health Organization, these are methods of contraception that are approved for use in all of the countries that they were destined to. So we see this very much as an ideological attack and an attempt to limit reproductive choice and reproductive freedoms, and to stigmatise women who choose to use contraception.
Now, just lastly, Sarah, we've also heard talk of more contraceptives and other aid being held up in places around the world. Do we know anything further about this?
Yes, so I believe there's also a warehouse in Dubai that contains a large amount of condoms and antiretrovirals for HIV. Now, they were funded under the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief Programme. And there have been an amount of legal challenges, and it's likely that programme is going to continue and is continuing in some form. So, I think that there's a chance that those contraceptives will get released. There was also, in January, when the stop work order happened, there was also an amount of stock in shipping containers on its way into countries, and also in ports and national warehouses. But national governments and UNFPA have worked really hard to slowly get those liberated. And we're hearing, reports from our teams, for example, in Ghana and the Democratic Republic of Congo, to say that they're now actually trickling through into the supply chain, and service providers are able to start accessing them to ensure that women have access to them. But, this is the US government's family planning program is now finished, and they will be world's largest donor for family planning. They probably funded, 50% of the donated contraceptives that low and middle income countries had access to. Even though we're managing to get access to some of those products now, this is only now. It's not going to come back on stream next year, and it's leaving national governments in a really difficult position. Some countries have lost 60 to 70% of their health budget's funding overnight with no warning. They didn't have time to make a plan B. They didn't have time to organise with other funders. So going forward, we are going to see an absolutely massive shortages of access to contraception. We're going to see massive increases in unintended pregnancies, unsafe abortions, and maternal deaths as well. This is going to be life-changing for a whole generation of women.
Sarah Shaw, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.